What's poppin', people? I'm Alex Safey, here with my brother John, and this is Double Take. We're coming at you with an emergency podcast. It's been a minute since we did our pre-NBA preview, and today we could definitely not pass up doing an episode after the Blockbuster James Harden trade. It had seemed like the writing had been on the wall since, the offseason, really, John. Since just before the season was getting started, Harden wanted out. He was complaining about the roster. He showed up in preseason. It looked awful. He looked out of shape. There's all the fat memes, and they're still even going on now. And then last night, the Rockets played the Lakers, and everything just hit the fan once again. After the game, Harden saying, I've given everything to the city, but this situation is unfixable. And then afterwards, basically saying that he still wanted to be traded. John Wall coming back and saying, why you want to jump ship? It's been only 9 games. There's a lot of basketball to be played. Then DeMarcus Cousins also speaking out and saying that, there's been no respect from day one. It wasn't just that one press conference. Then the Rockets said Harden's not coming to practice today. And it seemed like they were just rushing to try to get him out of there, out the door, as soon as they could. And lo and behold, both Shams and Woj tweeted this afternoon this deal. The Nets will receive James Harden. It's a four-team trade. Rockets are going to get Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, Rodion Kurucs, 3 Brooklyn first-round picks, 1 Milwaukee Bucks first-round picks, which I believe came from Cleveland, and then 4 Brooklyn pick swaps. The Pacers are receiving Karis LeVert and a second-rounder, and the Cavs snuck in and stole a really, really good young center in Jared Allen and Taurean Prince, who's a good wing. So I know I've just done a lot of talking. John, I just want to hear your thoughts. How much better are the Nets? We already saw them be incredible. They had a great offense. I thought their best strength was that they had the deepest bench in the league, and I think they're sacrificing that for a guy in James Harden, which after game 1, I didn't think they should do it. But, John, I want to know, what do you think, how much better did the Nets get by adding James Harden?
Yeah, so here we are. Obviously, there's 4 teams in the trade. I saw just a funny tweet. It was like, I actually think the Pacers and the Cavs won this trade, which is just a funny take. They definitely did. They snuck in there getting the nice pieces from the Nets. And we're going to talk about how we feel about the Rockets later on too. But to start off, Nets, I'm on board with it. I get it. And to get James Harden for what they gave up, which was just pretty much all their future. They're essentially saying we're valuing all this on taking all that value of the future and those players, and we're going to try and win a championship this year. Next year, the year after, they probably got about a 3-year window where they're up there. And I think the reason they did this was it puts them right up there with the Lakers. And not only that, but another thing that needs to be said, and this has been another take that people are throwing out there on Twitter, is Kyrie Irving insurance. They don't know what's good with him. It's been for the past week, he said, he's been off for personal reasons, whatever. Then he was spotted at his sister's birthday without a mask, whatever, which is breaking, of course, the NBA's COVID protocols and everything. And then he'd have to go into quarantine and whatever. So they don't know what's going on with him. He's basically going Dennis Rodman, like we all saw in The Last Dance, just going off doing his own thing. And I think the problem with that guy being such a huge part of your team, I mean, they're going to rely on him a lot. That's the number 2 guy. They need him. But now when you take Kevin Durant's team and you put James Harden on there too, now that third guy, he's an oddball, you don't know what you're going to get from him, now it's not as important. So I think that was part of it too. And you could say it's crazy to give up all that in your future, and possibly it is. And that's why I like it for the Rockets, and I can get into that, Alex, too. But why don't you talk about what you think about Brooklyn first? Just my quick take, lastly, is I think it puts them on par with the Lakers. I still am going to keep my pick of the Lakers winning the title, but I think the Nets are right there in the finals with them.
It's so interesting, John, because as far as talent, there's really no argument you can make against this Nets team. But I look at the team and I look at adding Harden as compared to what they already were, and I don't think they're that much better. And I think that might be a hot take, because how can you add a superstar, a top 7 or 5 or whatever player in the NBA and James Harden and not get better? But I think, and when you look at their talent, you have 3 of the best scorers, honestly, ever. There's no reason to even say in this NBA. They're 3 of the best scorers of all time. And
I thought you were saying the top 3 ever. No,
no. The 3 of the best.
Yeah. No, I mean, even in today's NBA, who's up there with them? Steph's up there as a scorer.
Steph, let's say LeBron, whatever. It doesn't matter. But my point is, you have 3 of the best offensive talents in the league on the same team. The only thing that I think could kind of come close to this that we've seen in the past is the Warriors with Steph, Clay, and KD. However, that on paper made sense because you had a guy like even Steph. Steph he passes the ball and he can play off ball extremely well. And Clay is a guy who really doesn't need the ball in his hands at all. He's a guy who we've seen him score, 60 points and dribble the ball like literally 9 times in that whole span. So that's why that worked. When you look at this team, all 3 of these guys, I think, are at their best when the ball is in their hands. Kyrie's not a pass first point guard. Harden can pass, but he's only really a passer when the whole system runs through him and he's has the ball in his hands throughout the whole game. So when I look at this team, I think offensively, it's that NBA cliche. There's only one basketball, right? There's only one basketball. And I look at that on the offensive side of things. And then I look at defense, and I think they traded away Jared Allen, he was definitely the best center on their team. Now DeAndre Jordan's going to have to be, Lob City DeAndre Jordan, which I don't anticipate that happening.
No, he's good. He's solid.
As far as defense, we know Durant can be a good defender, and we know that Harden has had moments where when he does commit, when he is in shape, he's been a good defender as well. But if those are your 2 guys here looking, and then maybe DeAndre Jordan, who else on that team is a good defender? So I have questions about their defense. And then they also did sacrifice their bench, and Karis LeVert was looking like he was going to be 6th man of the year. That dude gets buckets. And the first game of the season, I wasn't too high on the Nets. Maybe, if you remember from the last pod we did, of course I thought I respected their talent, and I did think Kyrie and KD had looked good in the preseason, and was, after coming off of injuries, they looked good. But I thought they surpassed my expectations so far in the regular season. Now we have issues for Kyrie. So it's funny you said that Harden could be insurance for Kyrie, John. That was honestly my first thought after all these reports that Kyrie hasn't been around the Nets facilities or hasn't been playing for the past, I think he missed like the last 4 games or so. And I'm thinking, all right, well, now you have Harden and KD, who I think Harden and KD together is a better duo than Kyrie and KD.
Right.
But the third thing that I want to say, John, about this is when anytime you have 3 guys like that, you look at Kevin Love taking a backseat to Kyrie and LeBron. You look at Chris Bosh taking a backseat to D Wade and LeBron, and then even you see, I think with the Warriors, Draymond and Clay were able to fill different roles than they had previously once Durant came to the Warriors. I don't see Kyrie doing that, and Kyrie's the 3rd banana on this team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Kyrie moving forward. Do they trade Kyrie to improve their depth? Or would that be bad because KD loves Kyrie and they're boys and they both decided to come? So this trade, I mean, it's definitely super interesting, but I don't know how much better the Nets are, to be honest.
All right, so you talked for 5 minutes and you still didn't answer my question though. Where are they? Where do you think they finish? Are you gonna, if you're gonna pick a team, Alex, tell me which team is coming out of the East
I'll stay
the
with
team
my
I just talked about. And no, one quickly thing, and I'm gonna say, even if I told you there was a team with Kevin Durant and James Harden, forget Kyrie Irving, just those 2 guys on a team, you're going to pick that team. That's 2 MVPs. I'm sorry. I love Simmons and Embiid. We love Giannis. We love the Miami Heat. We love a bunch of teams out east, even the Celtics this year. I can commend them for how good Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have looked. That's not beating James Harden and Kevin Durant on a team together with a coach and Steve Nash, who we know he's got the right offensive mind, and he's been a good coach thus far into the season. So I'm saying just those 2 guys alone. You're putting Kyrie Irving, and yes, on paper, easily better. If you're just going to tell me from a fit perspective, you're not picking them, fine, but then tell me who beats them.
I mean, if it comes down to it, I would take the field just in general, but I know you're saying, oh, who's going to beat them? I'll stay with my pick. I'll stay with the Bucks. I think that the Bucks defensively, there's no weaknesses for them defensively. Of course, the Bucks half-court offense has always been their question, and we'll see once they get into the playoffs if Giannis has even. And I mean, so far it doesn't look like he's evolved that much in the regular season at this point. But how much Drew Holiday is actually going to make a difference when you get into the 4th quarter of a critical game 4 or game 5 or whatever, and can their half-court offense work? But I think right now the Nets, their offense was already incredible. There wasn't like a weakness on offense. Their weakness already was just like their defense wasn't as good as it could have been, or what I would say championship level defense.
Right.
And but I still think, and I think the chemistry is going to be the biggest issue with them. So, which is why it's easy for me to say I would just pick the field because I'm expecting them to crash and burn. You have Kyrie, who's who's been a problematic locker room guy. You have Harden, who has been super salty and has only played his whole career with where everything ran through him. And then you have the fact that Durant, to me, is like the most level-headed guy that I'm like in this locker room as far as like their stars. To me, it just that's the issue, you know. Durant, to me, I've never thought highly of Durant's leadership skills or his locker room presence. And now it's like I compare him to Kyrie and Harden, he looks good. So it's like to me, that's just it shows that I think they'll have chemistry issues, they'll have defensive issues, and for that reason, I wouldn't say they're a lock to come out of the East. And I definitely would still favor the Lakers over them in the finals.
All right, yeah, I'm with you. Lakers over them, of course. I mean, just because that's the known thing already. We saw them do it, and we see what they are this year. Right now, you know, they're top of the West even early on. They're looking good. We know they're going to be there. That's the sure thing. Here, we don't know what we're going to get. What I just want to push back lastly before we move on, talk about the Rockets side of the deal. To me, I get it. We're talking about Kyrie and Harden, these two crazy guys that for the first 10 games of the season, and Kyrie in the past. But before this season and the whole trade thing and everything with Harden trying to get out of Houston, have we seen Harden like not be a guy that we know is capable of winning with the right guys around? This is the best team he's had with him, and he almost was the MVP, the best player on a team that took that insane, the greatest Warriors team, the greatest team ever. He almost was able to beat that team. So I'm saying we know that when he buys in, he's there, he's that guy. Of course, we don't trust Kyrie yet because he says that he needs to get 10 post-ups a game or whatever. He's crazy. We don't trust him, but we trust Steve Nash up to this point as a rookie coach, this is tough. Winning a championship in your rookie season, of course, like that's tough. But good enough as a player coach who still has an offensive mind,
and he has enough good assistant coaches around him that Nash he won't beat
Mike D'Antoni. He's got Mike D'Antoni. And that's the thing. Harden has averaged double-digit assists in the NBA. I'm not worried about him or KD, who we saw play on the team with Steph and Clay and the team with all those scores. KD slots in nicely, and he's a guy who can play in a nice system.
I think KD could play with him.
Kyrie's the guy we're worried about.
Kyrie's the guy we're worried about. Absolutely.
And you know what? You're right. If the worst case scenario, Kyrie hates Harden, and I don't know, I have a hard time believing that the Nets went ahead and did this without talking with Steve Nash, without talking with Kyrie and Kevin Durant. So I think they know what's going on. Kyrie, as a basketball player, he's talented enough to fit on paper. It's just about his mindset. Is he going to go in and say, yeah, you know what, I'm okay having 11 points this Wednesday night in the regular season against Sacramento because Kevin Durant went off for 30 and Harden had, 30 as well. And I was the guy who was the third. There's going to be nights where he's going to go off too. Yeah. And he's a player we know is capable of scoring 50 points in this league. So I'm just saying it's on Kyrie, and I have a hard time believing the Nets went ahead, just burned their whole future and given rid of those 4 first-rounders and the 4 pick swaps. So they did all that just to, risk it and not know for sure that Kyrie's going to be on board with it. So I'm just gonna,
hey, John,
I know Kyrie's crazy, but I'm gonna
Kyrie's
say
word doesn't mean a lot though. And you're right, that's a good point. I'm sure they must have said, hey, KD, Kyrie, you guys sign off on this, and I'm sure they must have signed off. But that doesn't mean much if Kyrie's like, yeah, I'll buy in. He said he was gonna be a Celtic for life. He said he wanted to re-sign at the beginning of the 2018-2019 season, and we all know how that ended. So
I need to say a quick point on the Celtics. But Kyrie was supposed to be the best guy on that team. This is a team where Kyrie isn't, so it's fine. They went as far as Kyrie took them, which wasn't far. They got bumped in the second round.
To me, it was chemistry issues though. It was the chemistry issues, and what I'm saying is,
but it's leadership starts at the top.
Is just because you're saying your argument is, well, if Kevin Durant and Kyrie signed off, then I trust that they'll all buy in and they'll be good. I don't, because I could see it down the line getting sour, and now they're upset. Look at Harden. Harden. We just saw on Twitter it resurfaced. What year was it, John? 2018 or 2017? Someone tweeted, Harden, please, please, please never leave. And he said, I won't. I'm a Rocket for life. Whatever he said.
I mean, come on.
And of course, those are different situations. But my point is,
but of course
we've seen time and time again things turn bad in the NBA. And this rest of the season for the Brooklyn Nets, these 3 guys, it's going to be really fun to watch all the headlines. And they're going to lead the league in headlines. That's for sure.
And Harden knows. I'm saying this is the reason he had to force his way out. And this is one no one respects the way that he went about doing it. But I will respect the sentiment, which is, listen, I know that in 10 years, 20 years from now, when I retire, and people are judging him and looking back on his career, people are going to say, did you win a ring? Okay, you're not a Pantheon guy. He's won MVPs. He's broken scoring records, and he has the most, 50-point or 40-point triple-doubles ever. He has all these ridiculous just statistics of stat stuffing, assists, shooting, three-pointers, all that. He's going to be up there for three-pointers.
And he did contribute to a lot of winning his time in Houston since he got there, from the time he got there until, last season.
Sixth man of the year, MVP award. He's done a lot already. But of course, the most important thing he hasn't done yet, win a championship. He almost did it. And, I'm of the belief that if a Chris Paul injury didn't happen, he would have won a championship. And that was 2018, I think. 2018. But he knows they're going to be judging him. So he wanted out. I don't respect the way he did it, but he said, I need to be on a team that's going to win a championship. And last night, that press conference, what he said was truthful. He said, listen, the team isn't good enough. And it sucks because we want to see a guy that's in there. He's competing with his teammates. He's a good teammate. And of course, DeMarcus Cousins and John Wall are saying he wasn't. And of course, we believe that.
And you look at the numbers. John, the first 3 games, he was averaging 37 points, 11 assists. The last 3 games,
mailing it in.
He went to 17 points on below 40% shooting. So exactly, he's phoning it in. And maybe it is because he knows how great he is. He knows he's 31. He knows the clock.
It's what it was.
And he doesn't want to be Charles Barkley. I
don't respect the way he went about it, but we understand the sentiment of it. Yeah. He knows he's going to get called out if he doesn't win a ring, and he's like, I need to do that. So Here he is. You got your shot. Here's your shot. You guys got 3 stars. Go to the Lakers and beat the Lakers now.
With that being said, John, I do want to move on to the Rockets side of things because I don't know if this is a hot take because I know a lot of people are like, wow, they basically have 8 first-round picks for Harden and, also getting Oladipo. But I'm surprised, man. I'm surprised that we look at, after last night and everything, it seemed like these trade talks were going to progress very quickly. The 2 teams that emerged have been the 2 teams, from the start, Philadelphia and Brooklyn. And then with the Philadelphia side of things, it sounded like Ben Simmons was potentially being traded, or Ben Simmons and Tyrese Maxey, who Tyrese Maxey's been very good so far as a rookie. He scored 39 points the other night. Compared to this haul, which is I understand, they did get a lot of first-round picks, and hopefully some of those will be, I think a few of them are 5 years from now. So they will be better picks. It won't be when Brooklyn's, potentially making the finals for the next couple of years. It'll be when they're not as good. But I just don't see how they went from a few months ago saying, no, we're not trading anyone until we're not trading Harden until we for sure can get a young star and a haul of picks. And to me, they didn't really get that. I know that Oladipo, and I'm a believer in Oladipo, but you look at him, his injuries he hasn't been he hasn't been an all-star since his injuries. And then he's also on an expiring deal. So at the end of the day, let's say Oladipo, let's say that the rumors this summer that were reported, or not this summer, I guess it was in October or whatever, that he really, wants to go to Miami, or he just, and he's a guy who's been traded so many times. I think he will want to see free agency. So now the Rockets, that's the young guy they got. They got a guy who's coming off of injuries.
He's 28.
He might still leave, and he's 28. That's pretty old. I didn't even realize how old he was.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Rockets could have got something better. And to me, it seems like they were going to wait once the season started. And then, after last night, they're like, all right, we just need to trade him. We need this guy, get this guy out of here. And I would have done what the Pelicans did with Anthony Davis. Like, all right, bro, you can sit at home while we're playing games, but we're not going to trade you until we get something that we like. So, but I guess, they just wanted to get him out of there. So I don't like what the Rockets got in return. What do you think about with the Rockets?
So, I would have been with you. I get it. And if you could have had Simmons or Embiid, then I'm with you. And maybe they were going to get Simmons or Embiid, but they were going to get less draft picks, and they were just saying, you know what, we're going to trade Harden there. We think he's going to blow up with that team. We know that even if it doesn't blow up, let's say they win a championship or 2, they have opt-outs. All 3 guys, I'm pretty sure, have opt-outs in 2022. Maybe I was wrong, but I'm pretty sure I saw it on Twitter. So these guys can opt out if it blows up, even if it doesn't blow up. So opt-outs after 2022. They have picks from 2023, either swaps or just direct first rounders, 2023 to 2027. So I don't know what the age they're all at about 30, 31, 32, right now. So that's 2027. It's 2021. That's in 6 years from now. They're not going to be good. So who knows what the 2027 first round pick from the Brooklyn Nets is going to look like?
I don't think it'll look like Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, though. And I know it's too early to tell. It's too early to tell. Why not? Because I
You
think
could have
that
LeBron James Jr.
that
LeBron
that was
James
actually
Jr.
like a perfect storm, John. I think after the Celtics traded Pierce and Garnett, that was kind of a perfect storm, which is where that team fell apart. And all those guys were much older, and they weren't
They
as
were
good.
older.
On paper, these guys blow out that
Oh,
roster.
no doubt. Harden is better.
On paper, you know. So
Yes, Harden is much better than Paul Pierce and KG at the end of their careers, of course.
and
But still, what I'm
it's perfect
saying,
for them to be able to get Tatum and Brown and even whatever,
right?
you know.
And that's fine. Maybe the 2021, that's this year. That pick swap, that won't be. They won't even swap that pick. 2022, that first rounder they get, and they have Milwaukee's first rounder,
That's gonna
and
be
they have the Nets
20.
first rounder.
That's
Yeah,
gonna be
those two teams could be in the conference final. So those picks might not be good. But as I'm saying, 2023, maybe Kyrie's out, maybe Harden leaves, maybe Durant's gone.
You're not
And
leaving.
listen, fine, not leaving, but guess what? 33, 34, 35, 36. Eventually, they're too old, and you're gonna get a pick of it. And also, I would have to push back. In today's NBA, I'm sorry, there's no way all three of these guys stay together for 4 or 5 seasons. In today's NBA,
Should we bet?
yeah, we could do
they
that.
all stay together for the next? What's the over/under for seasons that they play together, John?
I feel like if we're talking about if we're saying 2 of them, I would say
No, all
3.5.
If
If it's all 3, I hate to say it, but it's 2.5. It's do they stick together this season and next season? Do they stick together past that? If it works out incredibly and they say, we're gonna run a dynasty, okay, fine. Because of course, on paper talent, we know that from the top 3 players on your team, from on paper talent, they're up there with Steph, Clay and KD. Of course, that team's better, but 2 MVPs and an awesome all-star as your third best guy, they're up there. Back to what I was saying, Houston. I like it because of all those picks. And now, at first I was like, oh, so they really got LeVert. And when you look at the team that gave up the star, that team always lost the trade. So, of course, Houston loses the trade. They lost James Harden. But they got all the draft pick compensation. And on top of it, they were able to swap LeVert for Victor Oladipo. So, I would say I'm trying to
– Who's better? Who's better, LeVert or Oladipo?
So, I'll talk about that. LeVert is on the come-up. Whereas I'm saying Oladipo, they already knew what he looked like at his best. At his best, he was an all-star. He was, great guard, defensive guy, all that. He could score. Great guy, goes into the playoffs, and they lost to LeBron that year. Of course, injury has messed him up, and he's an expiring contract right now, so they could still lose him. Right now, they have to try and get his health back and see if he can get back to that Victor Oladipo. Because that Victor Oladipo, of course, he wasn't James Harden. But he was 65%, 70% as good of a player as him. LeVert to me is 30, 40% as good, maybe half as. You know what I'm saying?
I think Oladipo right now, considering injuries and all that, I think LeVert is good. And like you said, LeVert is still on the come up too. LeVert's getting better. Maybe LeVert's ceiling isn't as high as Oladipo, and that's probably what it is. The Rockets are betting on Oladipo's ceiling.
Let me check. I don't know how. How would you guess LeVert's age? I don't know what it is.
He's 20. He's 25, let's say. No, under.
26. He's 26.
All right.
He's born in 1994. So yeah, he's Oladipo's 2 years older and has an injury history. Yeah, but we also know Oladipo wasn't an all-star at his best. Can he get back to that in a contract year? He has every incentive in the world to. And I like that squad kind of. They're going to be competitive every single night. When you got Christian Wood, John Wall, Oladipo, and those first 3 guys, then you got Tucker in there, Boogie Cousins, and a new young coach who's trying to prove himself as well. So, a first-year coach, Steven Silas. So, I like what Houston did. Of course, they didn't get back a Ben Simmons, a 24-year-old Ben Simmons with a 20-year-old Tyrese Maxey. That would be awesome. And I don't know from there.
I don't think that was ever going to happen. That was never happening.
You don't think they were? So I don't either. But I mean, it seemed like right up to the point that the Nets. It was the news broke. It seemed like it was more going to be Philly than the Nets. So
I think if I'm a Philly fan, I'm happy. I'm happy that they can keep Simmons and Embiid.
100%.
And
I want to as well.
And I want to see how that team pans out. One other thing I'll say is I do like what the Pacers did, because I already thought, I think in our last podcast I was saying I would really believe in who the Pacers, or how good the Pacers were going to be this year. And I think that now LeVert is a little bit more of a sure thing than Oladipo. Oladipo was more of I was saying I'm betting that he'll be good, but now LeVert will be good. So
yeah,
and their Sabonis has been playing incredibly.
Brogdon,
Brogdon's
Sabonis.
so they got a nice lineup.
TJ Warren's been injured, but hopefully he comes back. We saw what he did in the bubble. So TJ Warren too. So it's a very solid squad. And Miles Turner now, kind of, a little bit. He's got a chip on his shoulder that he was in trade rumors for Gordon Hayward.
Oh, yeah.
He's been up there. And they actually won me some money last night. I bet on them. Just took the money line plus. I think it was plus 140 versus the Warriors. And the Warriors were winning the whole game. Fourth quarter, the Pacers won it and won me some money. So, the Pacers very solid squad.
They're at top of the East right now. So,
yeah, no. So to do what they did and to get back Karis LeVert now, of course. Nice to sneak into that deal.
So, John, why don't we transition then? Speaking of, my preseason thoughts on the Pacers, why don't we transition to, after 3 weeks that we've seen of the NBA so far, what preseason predictions were we right about? What are we changing? Are there any of yours that you wanna talk about right now?
Yeah. So off the bat, just looking at my hierarchy, the number one thing actually after night one was like, shoot, the Nets are gonna be good. They busted the brakes off the Warriors.
You didn't think they'd be good?
Huh?
You didn't think they'd be good?
No, I didn't pick them at the top of the East, and I was like, shoot, right away. I still like the Sixers. I'm gonna stick with the Sixers as my conference finals. No, of course Harden and Kyrie and KD. Yeah, now that with that trade, that's my team. But I'm still gonna pick the Sixers right behind them, and then of course Heat and Bucks and Celtics in some order as well. So I guess the first one I want to talk about is rookies, and the first guy is LaMelo Ball. And Eli was on here on our draft episode and our preseason preseason episode, and I have to say I just like watching him, man. He's fun, and he's like, that's probably the team that I didn't expect that I would have had watched as much as I have so far.
Yeah.
But if you watch, I don't know if you watched the Lonzo versus LaMelo game. That was a fun game.
Yeah, I definitely watched some of that game.
And then he had the youngest player to have a triple double ever. That's super cool as well. So
look at that list, and it actually does. It's not like elite company. Like, you got LeBron, you got Luka, and then you have both Ball brothers and Markelle Fultz. So it's actually a pretty interesting list.
So it's cool, but to see him now, he's knocking down 35% of his threes. Does that stay that way? Probably not. His form is really weird and ugly, and that's so we don't know what we're going to get from that end. But what Eli said, he's got a nice frame, got a good build.
And he can pass the ball.
He passes the ball. He's got a good feel for the game. And his rebounding is insane. Like, he had 14 rebounds the other night. Like, as a guard, he's a guy who handles the ball. It's cool to see him do all these other things. Shooting and defense, we don't know how good he'll be for his career, but we know he's going to be a fun player. He's going to be a high IQ player. He's going to be a good player in this NBA. So
right now, he's actually looking. That's for Rookie of the Year. And I picked James Wiseman. I was between James Wiseman and Tyrese Halliburton, because for me, I was thinking this year would be a Malcolm Brogdon Rookie of the Year type of year, where there was no guy who really jumps out. And we'll see if LaMelo continues playing the way he is, just because of the highlights and the name, he'll win it. But if Wiseman can improve, and if the Warriors maybe make a playoff run, and let's say the Hornets just fall apart and don't continue playing the way they've been playing, then I could see my pick still panning out. Do you have any other ones, or should we go every other? I'll talk about mine.
Go ahead.
What I want to change is Sixth Man of the Year. As soon as I finalized, I said I wrote it down. We had posted it on our Instagram. I picked Dennis Schroeder, which was just a stupid pick because he's starting. And I didn't think he'd start. I really thought Wes Matthews would start. They keep LeBron at point. But Schroeder's starting, so obviously he's going to be out of the running. But I did have – my other picks were my next two. Let's see. I had Schroeder, Goran Dragic, and then I thought – that's just, my homer pick. But Karis LeVert is who I would have said as well. But I think right now it's actually probably looking like your pick will be right. You picked Jordan Clarkson. He could be the Sixth Man of the Year, John.
Yeah, he could be. He's entering the Jazz. We'll see what happens there. But really quickly, guys, to get back to rookie. So, yeah, mine was Killian Hayes. He hasn't looked like that with the Pistons so far. So, yeah, if I'm going to switch right now, I'll go with LaMelo. So you were just talking about yours. So who are you switching your sixth man to, Alex?
I'll say Jordan Clarkson because LeVert's getting a start now. So
yeah, so LeVert would have been off the bat, and then the Dinwiddie injury. With the Dinwiddie, Kyrie, KD starting, perimeter, and then with LeVert off the bench, it seemed like I mean, that's what they were saying. I think Steve Nash had sold him on, be the Manu Ginobili of this big three. So that's one. My MVP, I'm gonna step off of the Giannis thing, and it's for no reason because I still I still believe in what I said about him then, which is that I don't know if Luka is gonna be healthy enough, if the Mavericks will be healthy enough, and Luka will be healthy enough to win it. And I don't know about LeBron Davis. I don't know about anyone else down the line. I will say now, and Bill Simmons, and Ryan Russillo talked about this on the Ringer their podcast
video clip.
I think I'm gonna have from this point forward. I'm probably gonna just say LeBron, and I'm gonna say it because of how close they were to giving it to him last year. Even though Giannis had this statistical monster season, and people still got in there and made everyone rethink it. And who knows if the season hadn't ended with 20 games left and they didn't go to the bubble for 8 games? Who knows if LeBron would have closed the gap more and it's just about the narrative. So where's the narrative right now? The Lakers are really good, and we don't really know about the Giannis's, the Lukas, the Jokic is averaging a triple-double, but they're not.
It'll be hard for Durant. I think a lot of people will vote for Durant today, but it'll be hard the rest of the season when you got Harden coming in, who's also an MVP caliber player.
MVP guy. So right now, I think just like the safe bet, I just think it's going to have to be a team that's good. Do I see the Mavericks? The Mavericks are in the bloodbath, part of the West with Phoenix and the Jazz and even the Clippers. The Clippers aren't a solid number 2 right now. They're in there in the middle with all those teams, and the Nuggets are going to come up. So the Mavericks are in there. Can Luka still be look amazing and have amazing stats and be a 4, 5, 6 seed and win the MVP? Yes, but with all the LeBron, the LeBron versus MJ, LeBron's going to go and I think LeBron's going to go for it too. And that's another thing Bill Simmons was talking about was he thought that LeBron would pass the torch, give it to Davis, say Davis is the MVP. Yeah, he's the MVP this whole year. And
I thought that too. I really did.
Davis has been the guy who's kind of been chilling back more. His block numbers are down. His offensive rebounding numbers are down. His free throw numbers are down. So those are stats that measure how into it and how hard you're pushing. And that's fine. Don't get injured. Your team's still going to be good. You have Gasol and Montrez. And you have Dennis Schroeder. Those guys are carrying, the offense when you're off the court and whatnot. So they're going to be fine. They should end up with a number 1, number 2, probably the number 1 seed and have home court, and that'll all be fine. AD's taking, the night off. And then we're seeing LeBron do things where last night where he shoots the 3 and he turns around and looks at the bench. That play is just amazing. It's just so much fun to see.
I watch it so many times and it's everywhere. And this is classic, ESPN loves LeBron. All they do is post about LeBron. And I've seen it so many times, but I watch it every single time.
And last night they played it on repeat, I swear, for 10 times in a row. And then you'd wait 5 minutes, and then they play it again 5 minutes later, 10 times. It was ridiculous. But that play was incredible. And we're going to see – if we're seeing LeBron do stuff like that and having fun, and he's going all in every night, and they're the number 1 team, I don't know who else gets it. So right now I'm just going to switch my pick. I'm going to say LeBron for the narrative, for the fact that he hasn't won it since 2013. Of the past decade, the past 2 decades, he's been the MVP every season, but he doesn't win it every season. So I feel like this year will be a year where the narrative just goes that way and people want to give it to LeBron, so voters go with LeBron.
I'm gonna stick with my pick. I'm staying with Luka. I'm gonna trust the process with Luka. I trust Luka. KP's coming back. He was supposed to come back, but I think their game got canceled because of COVID.
Yeah. So where do you think they finish then, the Mavericks, if Luka wins
They'll definitely finish top 6. And I think it's more – me picking Luka is more, because I believe in him as a player than as they're going to be a 3 seed. And I think someone we haven't spoken about either is Nikola Jokic. Jokic is having a good season too, but right now their record, I think they're about 500.
Their defense is bad. Yeah.
So that's another thing. Embiid has been playing well, so we'll see if Embiid the other night against the Heat, the Heat bench because everyone was out because of COVID contact tracing. They beat us in overtime. Embiid had 43 points, 15 rebounds, hit the game winner. But Simmons, John, went 2 for 2, and he only shot 2 shots the whole game. Yeah. It's crazy.
Weird.
But so, as far as other preseason predictions, I really slept on the Utah Jazz just because, not just honestly because of what I wanted to happen. I wanted to see Phoenix be really good, who Phoenix is good. I was expecting Denver to still be good. I wanted Dallas to be good. I thought Portland, I still have to give them their respect. But the Jazz are good, and I don't want to sleep in the Jazz.
Jazz are on par with those 4 teams.
Yeah, they really are. And And then one other thing, shout out Eli if you're listening. I'm doubling down. The Raptors are going to suck. And I'm honestly mad that I didn't go all the way and say they weren't even going to be the 8 seed. I did say that for a while. Eli convinced me. I said, all right, fine, they'll be the 8 seed. But now I think it's stupid. I shouldn't even have put them as the 8 seed. Like, they're not making the playoffs.
I mean, right now they're what? Like
the Raptors suck.
They're 2-8 or
they're bad.
I think they're 2-8 right now.
Yeah.
Or no, that might be the Wizards too. That's another one I need to say. I was pretty high on the Wizards. I love putting Westbrook and Beal together. I thought Scott Brooks, he's coached Westbrook in a 30-point score. I sold myself on that. I talked about Bertans and Avdija, however you say it. They were fun. And right now, they're 3-8, and Toronto is 2-8. So those two teams.
That is somewhere where Eli was right. Eli did say they'll be one of the worst defensive teams in the league. But I think
another thing we need to call Eli out for, Alex. You know what I'm about to say?
The Pelicans? No.
The jerseys that are right behind you.
OKC. Oh, yeah. OKC's competing every night.
Yeah, so Eli thought OKC would be under, which their over-under for wins was
25.
Super low, and he went under. He's like, this seems to be even worse than I think. And I had a hard time with that just because he's like, you can't name their starting five. And I'm like, you know what? You're right about that. But I know they have SGA. They have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, Lou Dort. Don't ever doubt Lou Dort.
They have Lou Dort, and they have Al Horford. Those are three guys that, like, you know, I mean, we're all on playoff teams.
Oh,
yeah,
Lou Dort disrespect will be tolerated on Double Take Sports, okay?
So, yeah, they compete every night. And right now, I think, are they 6-5 or 5-6? Let's see. Their record right
Close
now.
to 500.
They're 5-5. So they'll be right in there. Who knows? If they're in the play-in game, I'm just gonna laugh. That'll be
crazy. That'll be crazy. Yeah. All right, John. Speaking of, you know, we're doing our preseason. Where are we right? Where are we wrong? Something we need to talk about, John. I'm surprised they've only got name dropped about one time in this whole show so far. However far we are into it, and that's our beloved Miami Heat, John. What's going on with the Heat? Are we missing Jay Crowder? That was my fear, that we were going to miss Jay Crowder more than anticipated, that Maurice Harkless wasn't going to cut it, and that Avery Bradley, as good as he is, doesn't do the same things that Jay Crowder did, and we don't really have anyone to do. Also, I don't know what's good with KZ Okpala. We were in the preseason, we were all pumped about him. We were hyped. That being said, Precious has been incredible. Precious has been very good. He's been doing as good of a Jay Crowder impression as anyone has, even though, you know, he's not a shooter like Jay Crowder was last season. So what do you think about the Heat, John? Are you worried? Should we hit the panic button or what?
No, we're not in the panic button. We're 10 games in, and we're still afloat. We were, I think, 5-5 going into our Sixers game last night with 8 guys playing. Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Kelly Olynyk, Precious, Gabe Vincent, or those were our starters, I guess. Yeah. And then off the bench, Chris Silva, Max Strus, other 2 G League guys who don't play in it.
He is a sniper.
And Andre Iguodala, who of course we know what he is, but he's older. So that was a lineup that took the Sixers with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid to overtime, and we
who are top 2 in the East right now. And they've been playing incredible basketball. So
and we should have won. And obviously, I'll say for them, they were missing some guys too, but they had their 2 most important guys in. We were missing our 3 most important guys: Dragic, Bam, Jimmy Butler. Okay, so 3 stars right there weren't playing for us. Or no, I'm sorry, Dragic's off the bench, but you know, still most important guy, or one of the most important guys. So
Udonis Haslem. Udonis Haslem wasn't there either. So.
Oh, okay. So I'll give you that. But what I was gonna say is, what you need to find throughout the season, and you know, to start off, no team is 10-0 right now. Every team has lost at least 3-4 games, maybe. But what you need to find is at one point in the season, you need to have enough continuity to rip off a run of, you know, going
10-0,
16-5, or going whatever it is, 10-2. Or we need to have a stretch or a few smaller stretches where we're a 5-0 stretch here or a 4-0 stretch there, and put together some wins. We've had like a million different starting lineups already to start the season because Spo didn't know who he'd like as the next guy. You know, he tried it with Mo Harkless. He tried Avery Bradley in there.
Tried Myers Leonard. He tried
Myers Leonard. So we've thrown a few different starting lineups out there. Once we find that continuity, and what's been also pushing back on continuity right now, COVID. The NBA just set some new league protocols, some basically new rules where players can't leave their homes now. They can't leave the hotel. They can't have guests at the hotel with them, you know, before they were allowed to. So things like that they got rid of now. hopefully cracks down more on the league. We're not going to have guys like Jimmy and Bam out, for prolonged periods of time. And hopefully once that happens, you can have the continuity. And I'm sure we'll put together a little 8 to 10 game win streak. And
you ready for a hot take here? So here's my hot take. You talked about, we're going to need to pull off, string a lot of wins together at different stretches in the season. And for that, that's, you need your continuity. You need the same guys playing every night. And I'm worried that with COVID, every guy's in and out of the lineup because of the protocols and the contact tracing. It's not going to be able to happen. So, hot take, if a team was ahead of the curve, we've already had you remember going into the bubble, we had probably 4 players who had tested positive, I think. Have the rest of them test positive. Take the 2 weeks. Get the antibodies, and then the rest of the season, you're at an advantage. None of your guys are going to be out of lineup because you all have the antibodies. You're all immune. And once your whole team's immune, you can go the rest of the season. And tonight we're playing the Sixers. They might not have their guys. Tonight we're playing the Lakers. They might not have their guys. We're playing the Hawks. We're playing the Celtics. Whoever we're playing. And they're going to have 3 or 4. Every team, every night has someone out of the lineup. But if the Heat, I'm going to call out Pat Riley. I'm going to just tell him, get ahead of the curve.
Expose everyone.
Have whoever has COVID, spit in the water fountain, spit in the Gatorade, and there you go.
I'm sure that's realistic. So no. What I think though is about the whole COVID thing is it worries me because we had a bubble in the playoffs and that was perfect. We didn't have one case where this guy had to miss a game or whatever. None of it. Not one.
It was a dream, man. We took it for granted. We did,
and now it's like night in, night out. I watched 2 games in the past week where a team only had 8 players. The Sixers did, and Tyrese Maxey, sorry. Maxey had
39.
At 39. And then, of course, same thing happened to us where our Kentucky guy, Tyler Hero, had 34 was against the Sixers. We only had 8 guys. So if we're seeing multiple games like that, I don't want to see that extend too much into the season because then you're right, Alex. There's going to be no continuity from the top down. Right now, the Nets, who even came in, and on night 1, everyone was saying Kyrie and KD look great together. Joe Harris and Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, these guys all look great. But they're 5-5 right now because their stars have missed games, So right now they're 6-5 or 5-6 or whatever. But what I'm saying is no teams will get that, and we're going to see seeding that just looks whack. There's only 72 games, so if you're out for quarantine for 2 weeks and you miss, you're out that for one time at the beginning of the season, one time at the end of the season. Now you miss your star could miss 10 games, 20 games, whatever. On top of injuries.
I saw the report. The first one that I saw that really struck me was Jason Tatum will miss the next 10 to 14 days. I'm like, what? Just like that. It's for seemingly there's no reason. It's not related to basketball. He didn't twist his ankle. It's just someone got COVID and he was in contact with them, and then that's that. So I don't know what the NBA is gonna do from this point forward, John. I think it's gonna be really tough for Adam Silver to navigate this. There's no right answer, and even I know Aaron Gordon was joking on Twitter the other day, things are getting wild. I'll be down for a bubble if we go to Hawaii or the Bahamas. And it's I know the NBA players are not going to want that, but maybe do you do 4 bubbles and you do alternate? So we have one bubble in the Southeast, in the Southwest, and the Northeast. And the Northwest,
listen, Alex.
And then 10 teams play however many games over the 2 weeks, and then they switch bubbles. And then, I'm sure they're getting creative. They're getting to the drawing board, and they're saying, well, this stuff really hits the fan. Everyone's getting COVID. What do we do? We can't go back to Orlando, but maybe they have other ideas.
They're not doing that, Alex, because they don't have the infrastructure to do that 10 games into the season. They can't set up the Chicago bubble, the Vegas bubble, the Orlando bubble, and the 4th bubble, whatever. They can't do that and have alternate bubbles because they haven't planned for that. And for them to just call the audible in the middle of the season, they do want to adhere to their schedule.
No, what do they say? Let's say 2 to 4 weeks off. Let's say, all right, we'll take.
No, but that already throws it off. So, and that's a question.
But it's better than whatever this might end up being.
Well, they need to see how this goes. They're tightening up the protocols. They need to crack down hard. If they see Kyrie Irving at a birthday party without wearing a mask, or whoever,
John, you can't control. There's how many? There's over.
No, you do. You find these guys.
You can't control
it. You have to come down hard and just find guys and find. Because think about it. In the NFL, they did this. I think I forget which team it was. Was it Vegas or?
It was Vegas.
I can't remember. One of the teams just got screwed by the NFL. They took, they fined them a bunch and they came down really hard on them. And that team was an example. And the rest of the players kind of fell in line. And I just think they're going to have to be a lot more strict for this to happen.
The other thing, John, is I know we, talked about how the NFL early in the season, it wasn't looking good because they were just taking away people's bye weeks left and right. And who I didn't know how it was going to pan out by the end of the season. And they made it. But the difference with the NFL is you're only in one place for 1 week. You fly somewhere on Sunday and you leave on the next week when your game's over, whatever. The NBA, it's and I know they've switched it where it's like you'll play back to back sometimes, or not back to backs, but you'll play the same team twice. So it's like there's some continuity or something like that. But even that, compared to the NFL, there's 16 games. You're playing 16 different teams. That's it. The NBA, every team different night. So I don't know. I really don't know how the NBA is going to do it. I'm worried. I'm really worried.
Yeah, I am too.
Okay, speaking of the NFL, John, it's week 2 of the NFL playoffs. This weekend, we got a lot of great matchups. We got Browns-Chiefs. Kansas City's favored by 10. We got Bills-Ravens. That one's going to be a lot of fun. Buffalo is favored by 2.5. Packers-Rams. Green Bay is favored by 6.5 points. And we have Saints-Bucks. That's also going to be a very fun matchup of the two grandpa quarterbacks. New Orleans is favored by a field goal. So, John, why don't we walk through each of these? What sticks out to you? What picks are you making? Are there any games that you think that big upsets are going to happen? What are your thoughts on these?
So
games?
for anyone who wants a safe bet, parlaying the Chiefs and the Packers, I think those two teams. I mean, both teams are playing the Rams? What, the 6th seed? Because Seattle was the 3. Yeah. So the Rams were the 6th seed that upset. So the Chiefs are playing the 6th-seeded Browns, and the Packers are playing the 6th-seeded Rams. Those two number 1 seeds coming off their bye weeks, coming off of a week of rest. I would say parlay those two teams. The odds are like I think -120, so it's pretty decent. Not even, but about parlay those two teams. I think those two teams win. The other two games are the fun ones, right? We got Bills-Ravens. That's the most fun one, and then Saints-Bucks. Something I just looked up actually is so obviously I think people who've been paying attention this season, the Bucks and the Saints have already played twice. They're in the same division, and the last time it was week 1, which the Bucks didn't have everything together yet. It was their first week. Same with, even with Drew Brees and the Saints. But that week, the Saints won. And then later in the season, absolute blowout. It was 38-3. I mean, the Saints just destroyed the Bucks. So this narrative that everyone's been saying, it's hard to beat a team 3 times. It's hard to beat it like 3rd time's a charm for the Bucks. They could see what happens. I found an article that said there's been 17 times that a team has been in the Saints' shoes, hosting the team that they beat twice during the regular season, right? And of those 17 times, the home team went 12-5. That's a pretty high win percentage. So if we look at those, the Saints 12 times the home team wins, and 5 times they'll lose. So just taking that, it looks like Saints. Just to stick with my my bracket that I made, I'm gonna stick with the Bucks. Even though
the Bucks, I'm taking the Saints.
I picked the Bucks though because I thought the Seahawks were gonna win. So I had the Bucks beating the Packers and upsetting them in the second round. I'm just gonna stick with them and see how
that doesn't really make sense. Because then who'd you have winning the other matchup? Would you have the Saints winning?
It doesn't. And then in the other matchup,
you have Bucks Saints in the.
I had the Seahawks in the other one. I had them winning. So the Seahawks kind of screwed my whole bracket up. But whatever. And then for Bills Ravens, super fun. I'm gonna also stick with Buffalo just because I think after that Week 17 loss to them as a Miami Dolphins fan, 56-26, after they destroyed us that way, I have more respect for them now, and I think the Colts were a very good 7 seed that came out and played a really close first round game, a wild card round against the Bills. So I think I'm going to take the Bills, but the Ravens are awesome. Of course, we're rooting for Lamar. I like Lamar a lot.
Yeah, I do like Lamar, but I'm just that game it could go any way. All 3 other games, I feel confident about what my prediction would be. I would pick the Chiefs, I would pick the Packers, and I would pick the Saints, and I'm confident about those. Bills, Ravens, like you, I would pick the Bills, but I could see it going either way. I could see the Bills blowing out. I could see the Ravens blowing out. I could see it being close. I don't know, and I'm just gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna get the popcorn ready. I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna be trash talking Eli, of course. But yeah, Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson doesn't get much more fun than that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, and I think that is the most fun game so far. So we'll see.
we will. Well, I think that just about wraps things up. I'm glad we got this emergency podcast in. You know, it's been a minute since we've done one. Things have been crazy with the holidays, with finals, whatever. But this next year, 2021, is going to be a great year. We appreciate everyone listening to us, staying with us throughout 2020. You know, it was a very weird year in general and a crazy year and not a very good year for lots of people. But, you know, as far as our podcast, it was the first year that we really went, you know, front to back of the whole year doing pods, and it was a lot of fun and it was a learning experience. And we do have to give a huge shout out to the Miami Heat and the NBA for the bubble and the Heat giving us a lot of great content, because that was probably I look back at the year and that was probably the peak time for our podcast, and we were just having fun putting out, you know, our episodes and stuff. We're looking forward to another great year. So hopefully, you know, we're gonna get back on it. We've been slacking a little bit, but we gotta get back and it's gonna be fun. So everyone, thanks for listening. Peace out.
Go Heat.